I'll introduce myself and I'll just go back. Introduce myself, Introduce myself briefly, Julie Edwards, and as Jane said, I'm the CEO of Jesuit Social Services, which is a social change organisation based in Australia. We've been in existence for about 46 years, and over that time we have been working with some of the most disadvantaged and marginalised people in our community. We say that we do and we influence, so we are very engaged on the ground. We have about 420 staff and over 200 volunteers who work with us on a range of areas. A key part of our work is accompanying people exiting custody, both children and adults. And that work, of course, has brought us into contact with men, because between 92 and 95% of the prison population is male. That's Australian statistics, but I know for a fact that they are pretty global. So after 40 years of doing that work, we woke up and we thought, this is a very gendered problem. I haven't heard much about gender here in the last couple of days, and I think we really need to look at it. I know at Jesuit Social Services, through that work, we started digging in a bit deeper, and we noted that 95% of all acts of reported violence happen at the hands of a man, that one woman is killed every week by a partner or ex-partner, by a man. But when we also look at how men are travelling, we see that 80% of school exclusions, that means expulsions from school, are boys. We know that 6 out of 8 suicides a day in Australia are men. So it's fair to say men aren't travelling too well themselves either. So that led us to establish the Men's Project in our 40th year, so 6 years ago. And it was to provide leadership on the reduction of violence and other harmful behaviours prevalent among boys and men, and build approaches to foster their well-being. I want to really invite everyone to think about this as a gendered issue. It is men who are committing these offences. We've been picking men up from the prison door for 46 years, and we know that from our research, which we then moved into doing research, positive attitudinal change and effective interventions. We know that the Man Box was one of our first pieces of research. That was surveying 18 to 30-year-old men. We've now done it with adolescents, and we're now doing it again with older men. And we know that those boys or men who have the most rigid and, I'd say, outdated ideas of what it means to be a man, we say they are in the Man Box. And those that are in the Man Box are the sort of things I'm talking about: hypermasculinity, like a real man never says no to sex, you have as many sexual partners as possible, I should know where my partner is at all times, it's fair enough to use violence to resolve an issue, etc. We know that those factors, if they are there, they are 25 times more likely to account for the use of violence. So it is important how we understand ourselves, and for men how they understand their masculinity, because outdated modes of understanding that are very harmful. They're harmful to women and children, and they're harmful to themselves. We need to look at gender. I'll just go back and briefly say, that positive attitudinal change. So partly what we did with this research is we have been working with influencers, I suppose, teachers, sports coaches, others who work with young boys, and helping them to explore what healthy masculinity looks like. And it's not prescriptive. We're not saying, a real man does this, but we are opening up conversations in a non-blaming, non-shaming way for boys and men to be their best selves, to flourish. That's just one of the things we do under that second element. And the third one, which is the most relevant for today, I suppose, is effective interventions. When we started the Men's Project 6 years ago, we didn't know what particular interventions we would be doing. We assumed that it would be working, I suppose, with men to help them not commit violence. At the moment, in most places, the only tool in the toolkit is a criminal justice response. And we wanted to create others. But what that led us to, in fact, was to discover a particular program called Stop It Now, which was started by a victim survivor, Fran Henry, in the United States in 1992. It's then gone to other countries, and my next slide will show you that. But I just wanted to point out that the significance of the problem, I don't really need to with you. In Australia, 1 in 3 girls and nearly 1 in 5 boys have experienced child sex abuse, and my colleagues from ACU conducted this research, so thank you for that. And about 1 in 5 men in Australia experience sexual thoughts or have perpetrated child sex abuse offences, and that's from other research. We're partnering with the University of New South Wales to that. So we know it's a big problem. We have begun a pilot of Stop It Now about 9 months ago only. We've done it with philanthropic funding, but we know that the Royal Commission, you've heard a lot about the Royal Commission in Australia into institutional responses to child sex abuse. This was one of their recommendations, that Australia does implement a Stop It Now type of intervention. Which is an anonymous and free helpline, telephone, email and live chat. It's support and action-based in terms of doing psychoeducation, a risk assessment and trying to redirect people, men who are having thoughts of sexually harming children or who perhaps have but want to stop, find a different way to go. Going into this space was very challenging for Jesuit Social Services. In fact, I had senior people say, I don't know that I can do this, that I want to do this. But I said, we are picking the typologies are called serious violent offenders and sex offenders. We are picking them up at the prison door. Why wouldn't we do more earlier on to prevent the abuse occurring? So in the safeguarding space, as you know, that's what we're here to hear about, and it's fantastic to see all the developments, and of course we need to do more. Also, a lot of emphasis in the past has been to children directly, for them to keep themselves safe. What is missing is the focus on men, for unpacking the attitudes, because those attitudes and beliefs and values are directly linked to behaviour. The sense of entitlement, of privilege, they are linked to behaviour, dangerous behaviour. And so what we want to see is a pivot to look at the perpetrators or potential perpetrators and help them not go down a pathway to abuse. I'm not sure that I'll say much more. I just wanted to say that for us, what's emerged from our own 9 months only of working in this area is that we've had about 8,500 visits to the website. We've had most of the referrals coming from pornography websites that we are working with, where they get a pop-up if they are wanting to access child sex abuse material, which says you may be about to do something illegal, etc. Maybe you would like to be in touch with Stop It Now. So finally, I suppose I just want to say, because I have heard here a notion I find very concerning, that this is not our problem, as in not in my country, or that belongs somewhere else. Law enforcement data shows very clearly this is a global problem, and that all countries are producing and accessing child sex abuse material online. And of course, with the internet, this is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. The final thing I'll just say is that the Australian Centre to Counter Child Exploitation in 2021 received 33,000 calls, and that was up from 21,000 the year before. And in 2021, the Australian Federal Police were able to charge only 237 people around child abuse-related offences. And so they themselves are saying, we cannot arrest ourselves out of this problem. We need culture change. So in concluding, I'll just say, please look into the fact that the gendered nature of this problem, and I think and I talk with the Jesuits a lot about this, an all-male organisation in a church which is, the leadership is predominantly male, that we need to show leadership about this. We need to look at ourselves, to do that unpacking of that man box, to acknowledge the link between that and violent behaviour, and be able to look at our own privilege and entitlement and where that leads. And ultimately, I suppose, let's have a focus on men. I say that not in a blaming, shaming way, but together we want to keep children safe. And our research and other research shows it's very important in that regard to be prepared. We are people of faith, mostly here, to be prepared to be humble and to examine ourselves and to look at what attitudes we have that may seem a bit distant, but if others are doing our washing and cleaning, if others are our servants, and we're not doing that sort of work for ourselves, all of that perpetuates a hierarchy and a sense of privilege and entitlement. And I think it'd be great if we actually face that. Thanks very much.